Hello everyone, welcome back to the Family Devotions. It's so good to see you again. And goodness me, if you've seen the reading, it's like a yo-yo, isn't it? Back and forth and back and forth. They're going back in Egypt for the third time. The brothers, they must have got sick of all of that travelling. Going back to Egypt for the third time. I mean, think of all the camels and the horses that were going along the journey with them, doing all that walking from Canaan to Egypt and back again. I mean, imagine what the camels are thinking.
That's it. I've had enough.
But this time, this is a different journey, because this time it's different. This isn't just a journey to get grain. This is moving house time. Have you ever moved house? It's very stressful. Packing up everything, throwing away stuff you don't need, transporting it to where you're going. Well, for Jacob's family, they didn't have massive removal vans. They didn't have cars at all. They had to pack it all onto carriages pulled by horses, which Joseph had sent from Egypt. If you've ever moved house, it can be quite scary, can't it? You go from a place that you know really well to a new place. Maybe you've even moved to a new city where there's different people. Or maybe you've moved to a new country where there's different food and different people and a different language sometimes and different money. Everything might be different. Moving can be scary. Now Jacob, he wasn't just moving house. He was moving his entire family. Everyone was leaving Canaan and going to Egypt. His entire family, all his offspring. Did you spot how many there were in the passage? 70! 70 were moving. I've got 8 in my immediate family. 70! Goodness me, you'd be worried you might lose someone along the way, wouldn't you? Joseph was moving all 70 of his family to Egypt, to a new country, a new place. That's pretty scary, isn't it? But why was he able to do that? Well, because God said to him, "Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt. There I will make you into a great nation. I will go down to Egypt with you." Does that ring any bells, what God was saying there? That's God's big promises to Abraham, remember? Land, offspring, blessing. Land. They are being given this great new land to live in because they can't live in Canaan anymore because of the famine. They've been given a fantastic new land in Egypt. Offspring, well, Jacob brings the family of 70 down to Egypt. That's a lot of offspring. But they got even bigger and bigger and bigger while they were in Egypt. And blessing. God said that he would go down with them, that he would be with them. That's what he said to Israel, to Jacob. That's the blessing. God is with them. Wow. God is keeping his promises to Abraham and to Jacob. Even when they have this scary move to a foreign country, God says, "Do not be afraid." My promises are still going to come true. That's what he's saying to them. Pharaoh gives Jacob's family the best land to settle in. He makes them the most important shepherds in Egypt. Joseph's skill meant that the whole of Egypt was kept safe during the famine and given food to survive. See, the big word here, what's going on in this story, is preservation. Can you say that? Preservation. Definition time. Preservation is to keep something going. That's the big word here. But it comes from a much smaller word. Preserve. Preservation, preserve. It's a bit like the word persevere, if you know that word. Preserve. Do you know what preserve is? Well, this is preserve. This yummy thing is called preserve.
No, it's not. It's not. That's called jam.
No, Tash, it is called preserve.
No, it's called jam.
Fine, Tash, you are right, it is jam. But actually, it's also called preserve.
Huh.
I'll tell you why that is. Because it's called preserve because it's especially made so that the fruit inside lasts a very long time. Jam is made with loads of sugar in it, which means it lasts a very long time.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, which is why it's called preserve. See, it's not like a banana which goes mouldy in like 3 days. I mean, look at this one. It's already going mouldy. And then you have to throw it away. It's not like a banana. Jam lasts for a very long time. And God's promises, they are like jam promises. His promises are jam promises. That might sound silly, but his promises preserve. They keep going just like jam. They last a long time. Not just a long time, actually, but they last forever. God's promises. Whatever happens, God's promises are preserved. And his people, just like Israel in the story, are preserved. They are looked after so that God's big promises are completed. God's promises, they're not banana promises that go mouldy and go out of date and don't matter anymore and get thrown away. No, God's promises are jam promises that last forever. When Jacob's family go down to Egypt, they don't need to be afraid because God is in charge and his promises, and he promises to preserve them, to keep them going, to keep his promises. And when you or I go through weird and scary times like moving house, or when school closes, or when we can't see each other because of lockdown, or when we get sick, we know that God's promises preserve. They last forever. They are jam promises, which is such good news. And we know this is especially true because of Jesus. God made so many promises to his people, and Jesus came and made them all true. We know that God keeps his promises because of Jesus. So maybe whenever you have some jam, maybe you could have some after you've watched this, you could be reminded of God's promises that they last forever because they are jam promises. Maybe your parents will let you, maybe you don't even like jam, but God's promises are like jam. They preserve, they last forever.